The estate in Virginia was the kind of place that made you forget about traffic, rent, bad coffee, and every petty argument you ever had. A sprawling, historic property tucked deep in the countryside. Stone walls, weeping willows, a wraparound porch with creaky floorboards that groaned in the morning humidity. Lily had fallen in love with it the second we toured it together. "This is it?" she said, turning in slow circles on the brick patio, eyes full of that dreamy, wistful look she always wore when she wanted something to be perfect. "This is the place where I'm going to marry you, Oliver." Back then, hearing those words made my chest swell. Now, thinking about them makes my stomach twist. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. I arrived Thursday night, giving myself a buffer to tie up loose ends. Double-check with the florist, confirm catering, make sure my best man, Wes, remembered his tux. You know, the usual pre-wedding panic stuff. But Friday morning started differently. At 9:12 a.m., I got a text from Lily's cousin. "Hey, can you do me a huge favor? Lily forgot the bracelet her grandma gave her. Can you bring it to the bridal suite? She's not in there right now. Just drop it on the table. You're a lifesaver." The bracelet was still in its original box, tucked into a sock drawer back at our apartment. I'd seen it earlier that week while I was folding laundry. An old silver chain with a single pearl in the middle. I remember running my fingers over the pearl one night, joking that it looked like something a mermaid would wear. Lily had laughed and told me to never make fun of it again. "It means something," she said. "It's one of the few things I've always kept." So yeah, I knew it mattered. I didn't hesitate. I made the hour-long round trip without thinking twice. Love makes you do that. You forget to ask why something so important got left behind. You just go. When I got back to the estate, the house was buzzing. Hair and makeup artists, a delivery van blocking the gravel driveway, someone yelling about linen colors. I parked in the grass and walked up the side stairs to the bridal suite with the bracelet in my coat pocket. I expected to see one of her bridesmaids or maybe her sister Lauren stationed by the door, guarding the room like a hawk. But the hallway was empty, quiet, just the low hum of a hairdryer somewhere down the hall. I knocked once, lightly. "Hey, it's Oliver," just dropping off the bracelet. No answer. I figured she might be in the bathroom or downstairs with the photographer. I pushed the door open a few inches, just enough to see the edge of the vanity. My plan was simple. Set the box down, slip away, text her cousin. Easy. But I hesitated. There was something strange about the silence inside that room. It wasn't peaceful. It was hollow, like something was missing. That's when I saw the mug. It was sitting off to the side, half hidden behind her makeup brushes and a little vase of peonies. Not a wedding gift, not part of the catered setup, just a plain white ceramic mug with a name written in sharp, casual cursive. And below the name, a red heart. Michael. That name, Michael, stuck in my throat like a splinter. It was common enough, sure, but not in our story. Not among her cousins, friends, co-workers, or anyone I'd ever heard her talk about. Not once. The heart beneath the name wasn't something you gave a co-worker or a barista. It was personal. Int asterisk mate. Dated even. Like something from an old college romance. It didn't belong here. Not now, not in her bridal suite, the day before our wedding. I didn't touch it. I just stared, my mind spinning. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. A gag gift. A joke from her friends. Maybe something she picked up at a thrift shop and thought was cute. But none of that tracked. Lily wasn't the type to collect ironic coffee mugs, especially not ones with hearts and names on them. And she was too meticulous to pack something sentimental without a reason. The longer I stood there, the louder the silence became. I felt like an intruder, like I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to. I set the bracelet down gently and backed out of the room. The door clicked shut behind me. I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't even text her cousin. I walked down the stairs, out into the sunlight, and stood there blinking like I just walked out of a tunnel. Everything around me looked the same. The trees, the waitstaff setting up tables, my best man laughing on the lawn with some of our friends. But I felt completely unmoored, disoriented, like I had slipped into the wrong version of my own life. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in the little guest room at the back of the estate, staring at the ceiling fan spin in lazy circles, replaying everything in my mind. The mug, the heart, the name, Michael. Who the hell was Michael? By morning, I'd convinced myself not to panic. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it would all make sense once I asked her. Weddings are chaotic, right? Strange things happen. Miscommunications. Misplaced objects. Maybe the mug wasn't even hers. I shaved, dressed, tied my tie twice. At exactly 3:58 p.m. I took my place at the altar in the garden, surrounded by 200 guests. The string quartet played softly under a flower arch Lily had picked out from some wedding magazine. Everyone smiled. My mother wiped her eyes. The officiant patted my arm and whispered, "She'll be here any second." But Lily didn't come. 3 minutes passed. Then 5. At the 7-minute mark, people began shifting in their seats. Her cousin whispered something to her mother. Wes leaned in and asked if we should check in with someone. I laughed it off, tried to look calm. But my hands were shaking. Then Lauren, her sister, walked down the aisle, white-faced and pale. She held a piece of paper in her hand. No one moved. No one spoke. She stepped up beside me, tears already in her eyes, and handed me the note. "I'm sorry, Oliver. I can't do this." 7 words. Not even signed. I remember staring at the ink like it would change if I blinked. Like maybe I'd read it wrong. Like maybe this wasn't real. But it was. Lily never showed. Never walked down the aisle. Never said goodbye in person. By the time the sun started setting behind the trees, her phone was off. Her stuff was gone from the bridal suite. No one knew where she went. No one saw her leave. She was just gone. And I was left standing in a garden full of white chairs, melting ice sculptures and fading music, holding a note from a woman I thought I knew. I used to think hindsight was a blessing, something that helped you make sense of the chaos. But now I realize it's more like salt in a wound. Because once you know how the story ends, all the little things you shrugged off or explained away come back in sharp, unforgiving clarity. You start seeing signs everywhere. And God, there were signs. The night after Lily disappeared, I didn't sleep. Again. I lay in bed, our bed, technically, staring at the ceiling of my apartment, wondering how I'd missed it all. The mug should have been the first red flag, but it wasn't. It was just the final clue in a mystery I'd been too blind, too trusting, or maybe too in love to see. It started months ago. Subtle stuff. Little ripples in the rhythm of our relationship. At the time, I called it stress. Pressure from work. Pre-wedding jitters. Things everyone goes through. But looking back now, those ripples were waves building into something I didn't want to face. Lily had been working late a lot. She was in marketing, project management, or strategy. Honestly, I could never keep up with all the title changes, and her firm had picked up a major new client early in the year. At least that's what she told me. Suddenly, she was staying at the office until 9 p.m., sometimes later. "This campaign is a beast," she'd say, dropping her heels by the door and heading straight to the shower. I didn't question it. I wanted to be supportive. I brought her takeout to the office a few times, but she always said, "Next time, babe, I'm in meetings all night." The one time I did show up unannounced, she wasn't there. A receptionist told me she'd left early, maybe an hour before I got there. I never told her about that. I didn't want to come off as suspicious. Trust, I kept telling myself. Relationships are built on trust. And mine was built on blind optimism. There was a shift in her tone when she talked about the future too. We'd been planning to buy a house together, somewhere near Richmond, with space for a dog and a garden and maybe, eventually, a kid or 2. We'd even toured properties together, gone to open houses, talked about paint colors. But sometime around February, her attitude changed. "I don't know if I'm ready to settle in Virginia forever," she said one night, wine in hand, her legs curled under her on the couch. "Forever?" I asked, caught off guard. "We're getting married here, remember?" She shrugged. "I know. But forever's a long time. What if I get an offer in Seattle? Or Chicago? Would you ever consider moving?" We'd never talked about Chicago. Or Seattle. Or anything west of the Mississippi for that matter. At the time, I thought she was being ambitious. I admired that about her. She always wanted more. But now I see it for what it was, distance. A subtle pulling away. Like she was testing the waters of a different life, one that didn't include me. Her phone habits changed too. She used to be careless about her phone. Left it on the coffee table. Let me answer texts for her if her hands were wet from cooking. She even used my Face ID once when hers wasn't working. But in the last couple months, she started tilting her screen away when she got messages. Flipping her phone over. Putting it on Do Not Disturb at dinner. "I just want to be present with you," she said, smiling sweetly. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. God, how badly I wanted that smile to still mean what it used to. There were other moments too. Things that made my gut twist, but I never said anything because I didn't want to rock the boat. Like the trip she took with her coworkers to North Carolina. Supposedly a retreat, just a few days of strategy meetings and bonding time at a beach house. She sent me a couple photos. One of her with a group around a bonfire. One of her sipping a mimosa on a porch swing. I told her she looked happy. She said it's just nice to unplug. But she never sent one with her boss. Or with any female coworkers. And something about the background in one of the pictures looked off too private. Like it wasn't a company thing at all. I remember staring at that photo for a full hour, analyzing the angle, the lighting, the reflection in her sunglasses. Looking for answers in pixels. That's what I'd become, a man looking for truth in a filtered Instagram story. But the clearest sign? The one I think about most? It was how she kissed me less. That's a weird thing to quantify, but if you've ever loved someone long enough, you know what I mean. You know the way they used to lean into you. The way they'd grab your shirt collar or trace your jaw with a thumb. That extra second before they pulled away. That feeling like they meant it. That feeling faded. I didn't want to believe it at first. I told myself we were just tired. Busy. Focused on planning the wedding. That after the honeymoon everything would snap back into place. It didn't. Now every memory feels tainted. I look back on our engagement party and all I can see is how stiff she looked during the toast. I remember her saying she was so lucky to have me, but her eyes drifted when she said it toward the back of the room where I now wonder if someone else was standing. Michael? That name haunts me now. It turns over in my brain like a riddle I can't solve. Who was he? Someone from work? Someone old? An ex she never quite got over? I looked through every photo I could find. Scanned her tagged posts, her LinkedIn connections, even old emails. I became a detective searching for a ghost. Nothing definitive, but patterns started to emerge. A name in a comment thread. A blurred figure in the background. A tagged location from a beach trip she said was all girls, but only 2 of the girls posted pictures. Lily never did. The truth was staring me in the face. It had been for a while. She was slipping away from me long before the wedding day. I just refused to see it. The weirdest part? When people started calling after she vanished, our guests, our parents, friends, we both got flooded with sympathy. People assumed something tragic happened. Cold feet. Family emergency. A panic attack. But I didn't say a word. I let them believe whatever they needed to. I couldn't bring myself to tell them what I'd found. Not yet. Not until I could be sure. Not until someone said it out loud besides me. Because even then, part of me still hoped she'd show up at my door. Explain everything. Say she got scared. Say it was all a misunderstanding. Tell me she still loved me. But hope has a short shelf life when your heart's been played. And the silence? That was the final clue. Because people who regret what they did, they call. Lily didn't. She disappeared. And now I was the guy who got left at the altar trying to put together the puzzle pieces she scattered in her wake. 3 days after the wedding that wasn't, my phone buzzed with a message I hadn't expected and honestly wasn't ready for. It was from Amelia, an old friend of Lily's, someone we'd fallen out of touch with over the years. She wasn't supposed to be at the wedding. We hadn't spoken since maybe 2019 when she and Lily drifted apart after some falling out I never got the full story on. But now her name lit up my screen like a warning light. Hey Oliver. I know this is out of the blue. I heard what happened and I think you need to know something. That's how it always starts, isn't it? Some version of I think you need to know. It's a sentence that changes your life. The next 5 minutes after reading that message, I stared at the screen like it might rearrange itself into something less terrifying. She followed up with a longer message, one I'll never forget. I didn't want to get involved, but I can't stay quiet anymore. I know Lily didn't tell you the truth. I know she was still seeing Michael. She told me a few months ago that they'd reconnected and she said she was confused about everything. But the night before the wedding, she stayed at his place. I know because I saw her there. That was the moment the breath left my lungs. For a second, everything around me froze, like the air turned to glass, and all I could hear was the sound of blood rushing in my ears. I didn't respond right away. I didn't even know what to say. I just read the message over and over until it etched itself into my brain. Then, slowly, I typed back. Are you sure? Her reply came with 3 photos. Grainy. Zoomed in. Probably taken from across the street or through a car windshield. But clear enough. Lily was sitting on a beach towel, laughing. And right beside her, shirtless and unmistakably close, was a guy I'd never seen before. Tall, broad shoulders, sunglasses, hand brushing hers as they passed a bottle of something between them. One photo was a selfie Amelia had clearly taken from her car, timestamped Friday night, just hours before Lily was supposed to walk down the aisle to marry me. "That's Michael," she wrote. "He's her ex. I met him once. He used to live in D.C. but moved back to Richmond last year. She told me it was nothing serious, but I think you know better now." I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw my phone. I just sat down on the floor of my apartment and stared at the wall. Because it hit me, this wasn't about confusion or nerves or a runaway bride story people would whisper about at parties. This was worse. This was premeditated. Planned. A whole separate life. A soft landing for her escape. I was the fallback. I was the backup plan. That's what gutted me most, not that she left, not even that she lied, but that she stood in front of me for months pretending to build a future while her heart had already packed its bags and walked into someone else's arms. I didn't want to believe it. I still clung to the scraps of the person I thought she was. I reread old texts from her. I listened to a voicemail she'd left just 2 weeks before the wedding, her voice light and happy. "I can't believe we're doing this. You're going to be my husband. I'm so lucky." I had to stop halfway through. It felt like listening to a ghost read lines from a play we'd both agreed to fake. After a while, I called Amelia. My voice cracked when I said her name, but she picked up quickly. "Oliver," she said softly. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you like this." "No, I thank you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I think I knew. I just needed someone else to confirm I wasn't crazy." She was quiet for a second, then said, "You're not crazy. She's been walking that line with Michael for months. I think she wanted to see if he would commit, but I'm sorry, man. She never let you see that part. She said she loved me," I murmured. "She picked a venue, a dress, wrote vows." "Yeah," she whispered. "I think she wanted to believe it could work. But I also think she wanted the security. You were safe. Stable. And he was the one that made her feel whatever she was chasing." Those words stayed with me. You were safe. That's the part one hated the most, how true it felt. I wasn't the exciting one. I wasn't the wild card or the tortured artist or whatever version of passion she had built in her head. I was the guy who brought her soup when she was sick, who fixed her printer, who woke up early to scrape ice off her windshield. And somehow none of that had been enough. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my apartment and finally let the truth settle like dust on everything we'd built. The dinners, the vacations, the 1,000 tiny moments. All of it cast in a new light. I wondered which parts had been real and which were just placeholders while she waited to see if he'd come back for her. In one of the photos Amelia sent, Lily had her head on Michael's shoulder. She was smiling, really smiling, the way she used to smile with me before things shifted. I stared at it for a long time, longer than I should have, trying to feel angry. But all I felt was erased. Like I'd been a chapter she skimmed through while waiting for the story to start again. Over the next few days, word got around. A few people reached out, Wes, Lauren, even my aunt from Minnesota. They all wanted to know what happened. Some thought Lily had a breakdown. Some assumed something tragic had happened in her family. I didn't correct them. I didn't owe anyone the full truth, not yet. That truth was mine to carry, mine to unpack when I was ready. But I did confide in Wes. He came over one night with a six-pack and a look on his face like someone had died. In a way, someone had. I told him everything. The mug. The signs. Amelia. Michael. When I finished, he didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "I had a weird feeling, man. But I didn't know how to bring it up. She was so good at keeping things surface level. Charming. Polished." "Yeah," I muttered. "Like a politician." He looked at me, serious now. "This isn't on you, Oliver. You didn't miss the signs because you're stupid. You missed them because you trusted her." I nodded, even though the words didn't land the way he hoped. Trust is only noble when it's given to someone who deserves it. That night, I deleted every photo of us from my phone. Not out of bitterness, but because I needed to stop torturing myself. I needed to stop looking for proof that I mattered to someone who had already chosen someone else. I kept one thing, though, a screenshot asterisk T of the note she left. "I'm sorry, Oliver. I can't do this." 7 words. And now I knew why. Because she could do that. She could go back to the guy who broke her heart the first time. She could pick the thrill, the chaos, the what if. And she could leave me holding a ring, a tux, and a version of her that never actually existed. At first, I thought the silence would last forever. That after disappearing the day of our wedding, Lily would fade out of my life as quickly as she had exited it, clean break, no closure. It hurt, but I told myself it was better that way. Final. Sharp. Like tearing off a bandage. You don't heal faster, but at least you stop pretending the wound isn't there. Then she came back. Not physically, not right away. It started with letters. The first one arrived about 2 weeks after Amelia told me the truth. No return address, just my name scrawled across the envelope in her familiar handwriting, neat, careful, the kind of penmanship you get complimented on in school. I stared at it for hours before I opened it, trying to talk myself out of giving her the power to stir it all back up. Eventually, curiosity won. It wasn't long. A single page. No explanation, no full confession. Just emotion. A plea, really? I'm sorry for everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to say this. I did love you. I wasn't pretending. Things got complicated and I panicked. I hope you're okay. I hope one day you'll understand. She didn't sign it with love. Just her name, small in the bottom right corner. Lily. Seeing her name in ink made my throat tighten. It shouldn't have. Not after everything I knew. But heartbreak doesn't play by logic. It's like an echo, you know the sound is gone, but it still bounces around your chest for a while. I didn't reply. A few days later, another letter showed up. Then another. Every one of them was the same tune in a different key. She was confused, she was lost, she didn't know how to come back from what she did but needed me to know she never meant to hurt me. That last part? It was always there. That line, like she thought it could soften the blow. But the worst part wasn't what she said. It was what she left out. She never mentioned Michael. Not once. Like if she didn't say his name, maybe I'd forget. Maybe I'd believe this was all some psychological implosion and not a deliberate betrayal. Eventually, she started texting again. Random times. A few weeks after the letters, I got a simple, "Hey, just thinking about you." It was after midnight. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the screen. I typed out a dozen replies, angry ones, sarcastic ones, questions, silence, everything. But in the end, I didn't send anything. The next day, she sent a photo of the two of us from the early days. We were sitting on the hood of my car under the stars, somewhere out by the mountains. I'd taken her there one night on a whim, and we'd shared a flask of cheap whiskey while talking about constellations we couldn't name. In the photo, she was looking at me like I was the center of her universe. It was cruel, really, to use that moment as a reminder. Like she was trying to say, see? We were real. That mattered. But if it had mattered, she wouldn't have left. She wouldn't have chosen him. Still, the messages kept coming. Like waves. Sometimes days apart. Sometimes all in a cluster. Some were just one-liners. Hope you're doing okay. I saw a dog that looked like the one we almost adopted. Do you still make that lemon pasta you hate but always pretended to like for me? I started recognizing a pattern. She only reached out late at night. Always alone. Never during the day, never when she might be around someone else. I knew those kinds of messages. They came from loneliness, not love. Then came the visits. The first time she showed up, I wasn't home. She left a small box on my doorstep. Inside were a few old Polaroids, a dried flower I'd once tucked behind her ear, and a copy of a book I gave her with my handwriting still in the margins. No note. Just pieces of a life she chose to walk away from. I didn't touch the box for days. When I finally did, I didn't look through it. I packed it into a tote bag and shoved it into the back of my closet next to old Christmas decorations and a broken space heater. I told myself I was immune. That I'd crossed the threshold where her pull no longer worked. But even strength has weak hours. Late one night, about a month after the first letter, I heard a knock. I opened the door to find her standing there, coat wrapped tight, hair windblown, eyes wide like a deer in the road. It was the first time I'd seen her in person since the wedding day that never happened. Oliver, she breathed, like saying my name was the hardest thing she'd done in weeks. I didn't invite her in. I just stood there, gripping the edge of the door, caught between memories and fury. What are you doing here? I asked. I needed to see you, she said, her voice shaking. I've been writing, I didn't know if it. You didn't know if I'd respond, I finished. You were right. I didn't. She flinched. I just want to talk. About what? I said. You want to explain how you vanished the day we were supposed to get married? Or maybe talk about the beach weekend with Michael? Or maybe just cry and say it's all complicated. She blinked fast like she hadn't expected me to say his name out loud. Michael left, she said quietly. He had to go abroad for work. And there it was. The line that cracked everything wide open. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I just looked at her for what she really was. Not a woman broken by guilt. A woman inconvenienced by her choices. She didn't come back to fix what she broke. She came back because the thing she gambled on didn't work out. I stepped back and said, "You're not here because you miss me. You're here because he's gone." Her face fell. That's not true. Isn't it? I asked. You didn't write until he left. You didn't show up until he left. And you didn't care until the silence got too loud. I cared the whole time, she whispered. Caring isn't the same as loving, Lily, I said. You cared enough to remember me. You didn't care enough to stay. She started to cry then. Real tears, maybe? But I didn't trust them. Not anymore. I'm sorry, she said. I was stupid. I thought I had to chase the version of my life I used to want. And I was what? I asked. The version you settled for? She didn't answer. That was all I needed. I didn't invite her in. I didn't offer comfort. I said, I hope you figure yourself out. And I closed the door. She didn't knock again. But she kept writing. Letters. Emails. A voicemail I never listened to. Her apologies became more elaborate, her memories more poetic. She told me about dreams she had of us, about hearing my voice in coffee shops, about missing the way I made her feel safe. But she never mentioned Michael again. That omission told me everything. She still couldn't admit the truth, she had left for him. And now that he was gone, she thought maybe I'd still be standing there, holding space for her return. But I wasn't. I'd stopped waiting. There wasn't a single moment when I decided to let go of Lily. It wasn't cinematic like that. No dramatic music, no speech, no sunrise epiphany. It happened the way most endings do, slowly, then all at once. The morning after she showed up at my door, I woke up with this strange, unfamiliar feeling in my chest. Not pain. Not heartbreak. It was something quieter. Something still. Peace. For weeks, maybe months, I'd lived in emotional free fall, cycling through shock, betrayal, anger, confusion, hope, rinse, repeat. But that morning, for the first time, I didn't check my phone expecting to see another letter or message from her. I didn't rehearse imaginary conversations. I didn't even think about Michael. I thought about coffee, about breakfast, about work. And I think that's when I knew. I was done. Not in the bitter, vengeful way. Not in the way you scream about after a breakup. I wasn't interested in revenge. I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want to win. I just didn't want to carry her anymore. So I started with the physical. The objects. I walked through my apartment with a cardboard box and quietly began removing her from my space. Her books on the shelf gone. The sweater she left on the back of my desk chair gone. A necklace she once lost under my bed, and I kept thinking I'd return into the box. Photos. Gifts. The emergency toothbrush she left in the medicine cabinet. All of it. I didn't burn them. I didn't smash them. I didn't treat them like they had some cursed energy. They were just things now. Empty vessels. When I finished, I sealed the box with packing tape and wrote 2 words on the top. Donation center. Not a dramatic gesture. Just a line drawn. Next came my phone. I didn't block her. I thought about it. But something about that felt performative, like I needed to send her a signal. I didn't need that. She already knew I wasn't replying. So instead, I muted her contact. No alerts. No vibrations. Just silence. I archived her emails too. Not deleted, just out of sight. A digital closet I didn't need to keep opening. It was strange how empty the apartment felt afterward. Not physically, but emotionally. Like air after a storm. No more what-ifs buzzing around in the corners. No more rehearsed replies to letters I never planned to answer. Just stillness. A few days later, I ran into Wes at the corner diner we used to frequent before everything went sideways. He took one look at me and said, "You look better." I smiled genuinely for the first time in a while. "I think I'm okay." He raised an eyebrow. "Really?" I nodded. I didn't say healed. I said okay. He laughed into his coffee. Fair enough. I didn't tell him about the box. Or the letters. Or the voicemail I deleted without listening. I didn't need to. We sat there talking about everything but Lily. Work. Sports. The weird guy who always brings his lizard on a leash into the cafe. It felt normal. I didn't know how much I missed normal. That night, I sat on my balcony with a drink and let the silence settle again. It was different this time. Not the heavy silence of heartbreak, this was the kind that made space. For air. For thought. For something else, maybe someone else someday. But not now. I wasn't rushing toward anything. I wasn't moving on. I was just moving. And that felt right. What surprised me most was that letting go didn't feel like giving up. It felt like self-preservation. I'd spent so long thinking love meant holding on, fighting, waiting. But real love, healthy love, doesn't require you to sacrifice your dignity. It doesn't demand you stay when someone makes you an afterthought. It certainly doesn't ask you to wait around in case they come back. Lily made her choice. Michael left and she came back, but not out of remorse. Out of fear. Out of loneliness. Out of habit, maybe. But not love. And I refused to be her backup plan. A week after I packed up her things, I made one final trip. I drove to the donation center she used to volunteer at. The irony didn't escape me and dropped the box at the counter. The guy behind the desk gave me a clipboard to sign. "Want a tax receipt?" he asked, not even looking up. I shook my head. "No. Just take it." As I walked out, I felt something loosen in my chest, like a knot finally untying. On the drive home, I took the long route, past the lake we used to walk around, past the bookstore where she once bought me a leather journal and told me to write things I was afraid to say out loud, past the bench where we'd sat during a fight I can barely remember. The world hadn't changed, but I had. I didn't flinch at the memories anymore. They were like footprints on a trail I no longer followed. They didn't lead anywhere now. Back at home, I rearranged my living room. It's weird, the things you notice after heartbreak. How a couch angle can feel like a reminder. How a lamp can feel like a ghost. I moved the furniture. I swapped out the photos. I bought a plant. I never used to care about plants, but something about watching something grow even slowly felt necessary. I stopped checking her social media too. That had been a bad habit. One I told myself was just curiosity, but really it was a wound I kept reopening. I muted her there too. Just one more layer of peace. Days turned to weeks. She didn't come back. I didn't expect her to anymore. I started seeing friends again. Real ones. I started sleeping through the night. I started cooking again, not because she liked it, but because I liked the rhythm of it. The ritual. The quiet. I won't lie, some nights were still hard. Grief has no schedule. But I didn't drown in those nights anymore. I let them pass like weather. One evening I found an old sticky note tucked into the back of a notebook. It was from Lily. Something she'd left for me once after a fight. It said, "You're always the safe choice. But that's what I love about you." At the time, I'd clung to that note like a life raft. I thought it meant I was her anchor. Now I saw it for what it was. A warning. I folded it up and threw it away. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is close a door gently, firmly, and without apology. That's what I did. And I didn't look back.